last interview you said, I'm addicted to, you know, proving people wrong about the impossible. So what drives that addiction, that resilience to accomplish all these things?
You know, it's funny you asked me this question because I just recently celebrated a birthday and I had this day of reflection where I asked myself this exact question. I think since the beginning of my career, although the projects have changed and the partners have changed and, you know, the stories have changed, the thing that has remained consistent is my obsession with doing the things in the first place. I was just talking about this earlier today. It's a blessing and a curse, my level of focus on a task. I can spend 20 hours if I need to focused on a task if I really believe in it. And I believe in a lot of things, which makes it really, really tough to ever step away from work. But I think where I am right now is that I'm really, similar to the answer you just said, I am addicted to seeing what's possible in life. I thought my addiction was with certain things, like with, I'm addicted to being in TV shows and in movies and I'm being on stages and I want to see how many followers I can get and how many views. But I've learned that even outside of those things, there just seems to be an obsession that I have with breaking what I thought was possible as a kid. Because even when I get emails like, would you like to do a TED Talk? Young Lilly never was like, ooh, I wonder if I could do a TED. That was not even in the realm of possibility for me. But the idea of doing something and being able to enter a new space and sit at a table or break that table or break that rule or like just seeing what is possible is very exciting to me.
Do you feel that you ever get like imposter syndrome going into some of these newer spaces, or is it almost, no, I'm good, like I trust in myself and I'm able to step into a new challenge?
I have bits and pieces of feeling both like I have imposter syndrome and being incredibly confident, and it's like this weird mix I have of both. I definitely in some spaces do have imposter syndrome, specifically when it comes to philanthropic work. You know, I just recently started a Unicorn Island Fund, which is my fund dedicated towards girls and women in India, and the issue of gender inequality can feel so massive, and it is massive, such a complex issue. And when I step into, you know, the United Nations General Assembly or Davos or anything like that, I am in a room with world leaders and people who just know everything about this issue, and I don't. I'm still learning. And so in rooms like that, I definitely find myself being like, okay, don't say something silly, you know, don't ask a dumb question, if there are any dumb questions, which I don't believe there are, but in that moment it definitely feels like there are. And so I do feel like that. But then there's other times where I'm walking onto a stage and I really just, for my mental health, I have to tell myself, you absolutely belong here. Do not even for a second think you don't belong here. And I use that energy to execute on stage. So I use a little bit of both, to be honest. Okay. Here's the thing. I use emotions when I think I think emotions are very useful. And if I feel like I'm having imposter syndrome, that's telling me something. That's telling me that, I'm feeling a little insecure. I'm feeling a little unsure. What does that mean? That means like, that's okay. Sit with that. But also there's more work to be done to not feel like this. But I do think that in certain situations, I also have to just completely, like, I'm going to keep it 100. Just tell myself, you are that girl. You're going to go, and you're going to kill it, and you're going to crush it, and, like, there's no denying that. I have to have that energy sometimes, too.
Yeah. What first sparked this idea? Was it you? Like, did you present this to Headspace? Did they come to you? How did that partnership happen?
So years ago in one of my YouTube videos, I spontaneously said the term Unicorn Island. I did not plan for it. I was just venting about something and I said, I'm so annoyed I'm going to go to Unicorn Island. And my fans were like, what is this? What is Unicorn Island? We're intrigued. And I guess I define Unicorn Island as my happy place. You know, when I was younger, it was this wacky, wild place full of colors and candy and no drama, no problems, you know. And as I've gotten older, my happy place is very much so a place of peace. Somewhere that is inside me that, like, I'm okay with all of my emotions. I don't judge myself. I can reflect. I can be safe with my thoughts and feelings. And I always knew that I wanted to make a series about Unicorn Island for kids because I learned about mindfulness and meditation as an adult. I never once as a kid was ever encouraged to sit quietly or reflect or even, like, pinpoint what my emotions were, put names to them. I don't know if you can relate. In a lot of cultures, emotions are kind of there to be regulated. It was like, don't cry. You know, big girls don't cry. Don't be upset. Don't be angry. Don't have an outburst. And, you know, everyone was just trying their best while bringing me up. But as an adult, I've learned that, no, we don't have to be like that. We can actually embrace our emotions, and mental health does really matter. And so when I had my first meeting with Headspace, I presented this idea to them about a place called Unicorn Island where you could get, you know, meditate and get there, and we put together a great team and we made this show happen. But I knew I always wanted to do something along these lines because mental health needs to stop being taboo. And it's not going to stop being taboo just by us saying it has to stop being taboo. We have to start telling the stories, and we have to make it accessible. We have to make it fun. We have to make it cool. We couldn't make a show that was like, okay, kids, we're going to teach you how to meditate right now. Sit down. Like, it had to be wacky. And so the show's wacky and colorful and funny and so full of imagination, just the way I wanted it to be. One of the best parts of my job was that I obviously had to watch every episode and give notes. And after every episode, I was like, maybe everything is going to be okay. Like, let me not be stressed. But it was the most calming part of my day. And even as an adult, every time in the show, Dora goes, okay, let's start with a deep breath. I'm sitting there at my desk being like, and I'm like, oh, I needed that. That was good. There's so much great children's programming out there that I'm so happy to see exist, because growing up, I didn't really have much of that kind of stuff. But what makes this one incredibly special and personal to me is that it is a majority South Asian cast. Outside of that, it is an incredibly diverse show, even beyond South Asians. And that's important to me because, listen, there's a lot of South Asian people on the planet. 1 in 4 people identify as South Asian. And it's a culture where meditation is such a big part of the culture, but still, for some reason, mental health is taboo. So we're really trying to tackle that.
So I wanted to ask you, why is it important for you to create a show that is so smart and is, head-on in bringing in different issues that are realities for families all over the world?
Totally, and that's a great question. I wanted to make sure the problems Lilly is dealing with in the show were very real and that she was aware of what was happening. I think, personally for myself, and I think a lot of people can probably relate to this, as a kid, you're often not told things or conversations are not had with you because you're just written off as a kid. Like, we don't need to have this conversation and explain what's happening. They're just a kid. Let's not burden them with this. But I think what happens is you think you're burdening a child with information. By not giving them information, they're filling in the blanks on their own, and they're smart enough to do that. And so whether it's divorce, whether it's like something happening at school, I think it's important to talk to kids and treat them like they're active participants in their lives and not just bystanders to issues, because they are smart. And even in my childhood, there was a lot of times when I was just watching a room full of adults talk about something that had to do with me without ever asking me what I thought or how I felt. And again, I'm not here to point fingers at any of my parents or elders. Everyone was trying their best, but I believe as an artist, we have to leave the world better than we found it. And if that means I can create a show where parents are encouraged to have conversations with their kids, and then the future generation doesn't have to be in that room watching adults have conversations about them, then that's a win. And I will just say, aside, I'm going to have to flex for 1 minute here, but aside from the story, which I love, and the meditation, which is backed by science and great, I'm also just so proud of the animation itself. I'm so proud of the characters, how quirky they are. I love subtle things, I wanted to make sure that Lilly's South Asian culture was, Lilly, third person, was really in the show. So everything from the decor in her house to certain things here and there, it's so personal to me. And if you've never worked in animation, literally everything has to be approved. Yeah. So every photo on the wall, every pencil she holds, every soccer ball on the field is approved, how it's animated. And so I really went through every detail very meticulously to be is this true to what I think this character is? And will I think kids... There's actually even an ode to a Bollywood movie poster in her room as well. So there's all these Easter eggs in her room. A love for wrestling is there. There's if you're familiar with Bollywood, there's a Diwali the Honiya Le Jayenge poster kind of in her room as well. So there's all these types of things that I think make it very personal and cool.
And, I wanted to also ask you, because you have the birthday fund that you were campaigning for. Can you talk about what convicted you to want to do that and what the result has been?
Totally. So a couple years ago, I started Unicorn Island Fund, which is the charitable arm of my company, Unicorn Island. And it's all about empowering girls and women in India. I know empowering can be a very vague term. So when I say empowering, I mean, providing them access to education, to healthcare, to school supplies, school uniforms, to sports, anything to help them live the life they want to live, where they can make choices about their own life. Starts in India because I'm biased. That's one reason I'm biased. My background is, my parents are from India. But 2, statistically, India is the most populated country in the world. And so when you talk about gender inequality because of the population size, it's just that much larger of an issue. So every year for my birthday, every year meaning this is the second year I've done it, I do a birthday campaign where I ask my audience to raise a certain amount of money. Last year it was $34,000. I was turning 34. This year it's $35,000 because I'm old. And they raised $35,000 and I match it dollar for dollar up to $35,000. And I try to find other matches, people in my community that will match as well. We take that money and we donate it to community-based organizations in India that we work with. So, organizations that are on the ground, intimately familiar with the issues in certain communities, and then therefore intimately familiar with the solutions. And the reason I do it for my birthday, because a lot of people ask me, they're like, I'm a good person, I guess. No, I lie. It's honestly the vulnerable reason is I've had the privilege to travel a lot of places in the world, and I'm very fortunate to say that I have everything I need in life. And for my birthday every year, I get flooded with flowers and cupcakes and gifts, and that's all really sweet. I'm so grateful, but the truth is I don't need any of that. And I've traveled to places where the need for basic things is so immense. Like, I traveled to India the week before my birthday, and you meet people who, several people live in like a relatively small space, where a school uniform is such a big deal, where a notebook is such a big deal. And then it really messes with your mind when you come back I come back to LA, and then I'm getting sent flowers for my birthday that are probably $120 US dollars, and one US dollar is 80 something rupees, and it's like, I'm not trying to say that I don't deserve to experience joy. I think there is a duality in like, no, we can't solve every problem in the world, and we have to experience joy, and we can be grateful. But at the same time, I do think we all have a responsibility to do what we can towards a cause that's really close to our heart. So I always tell people that maybe you don't care about gender inequality, and that's okay. That's the chip on my shoulder, and I have all my reasons why that's the chip on my shoulder. Maybe yours is racism, yours is poverty, yours is the climate. I will encourage everyone to understand that most of these issues are connected anyways. But I say that we always have to pick one issue and relentlessly fight for it, because the world would be a better place. We can't, and another thing, and then I'll shut up, I promise.
No, keep going.
The other thing, when you said that you notice I keep pointing out that I'm a sponge, I like to learn, I like to be a student, is because I just feel like culture right now, especially internet culture, has led us to believe that we really have to know everything and we have to be perfect. And I think because of that culture that's created, people are scared to do good sometimes, because you don't want to post about something, you don't want to give money to something, you don't want to stand up for something because 100 people are going to question you on it, they're going to say it's not enough, they're going to say you don't know what you're talking about, they're going to have some sort of argument as to why what you're not doing is right. And I think that's really toxic. I don't think we should create a culture where people are scared to do good for causes they believe in. So I'm super honest in saying I don't know everything about gender inequality. I don't know the solution to every single problem that I'm presenting to you. I don't know how to help every single girl, nor can I help every single girl. But I know stuff, and I'm learning more stuff, and I know some solutions, and that still counts. Like, helping 300 girls still counts, even if it's not 3 million girls. And that's the mentality I'm moving forward with. It's really progress over perfection. And I'll give you a quick anecdote about this. It's so easy to be on a high horse and go into any other culture or country, India or any other one, and be like, oh, well, gender inequality means that, like, when I'm sitting in LA, I can be with my friends being like, I don't need no man, I don't need to get married, I don't need to have kids. Like, that's, in my opinion, I'm going to play the Beyonce album, wear silver, and then you go to another culture, and I heard a girl in India say to me, when I get married, and so already I have a red flag up in my judgmental brain being like, oh, but she thinks she has to get married. Like, she doesn't think that she can't get married. And then I had to get off my high horse, because the rest of her sentence was, when I get married, I am going to control where my money goes. I am going to make sure that I can be financially independent from my husband. And it really is progress, not perfection. Because maybe it's not maybe there's still oh no, marriage is something I think I still need to do, but I don't need to be controlled by my husband, and I don't need to ask him for money. Who am I to sit there and judge that progress? Like, that is still great progress.
When did that conviction start for specifically, like, gender equity and inequality? Was it like, did you experience something? Did you watch someone else's TED Talk or speech? What sparked that?
I think for majority of my life, it's been pretty clear to me that gender equality is the chip on my shoulder for various reasons. I'm the second daughter in an Indian family, so I'm not a son, and so that was pretty disappointing for a lot of elder people in my family. In a lot of cultures, not just Indian culture, it's a universal culture really where sons are prized, and so my family has no sons. so that was the energy I was born into, and I always felt like I had to prove myself worthy of being alive. So every time I did something, I was like, I need to let them know a daughter did that. And I still have that complex. Still on my Instagram posts, when I do something amazing, you will see me say, a daughter did that. Like, I still have that complex. I also have just been in a lot of rooms where I was discounted solely for being a woman. You know, I had a late night show for 2 seasons. I have been the first of many things, which has been, of course, great and awesome to say, but also really, really hard and scary and tough. And I've just, in my family and outside of my family, seen a lot of women with so much potential and a lot of girls with so much potential never get opportunities solely because they're girls. And when you become familiar with all the problems in the world, you realize that humanity is doing a great disservice to ourselves by not empowering half of Team Humanity. Like, half of the population is girls, and we just sleep on them. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's always been a chip on my shoulder, and I've always been really passionate about it. But this recent conviction of like, no, I don't even care if you question me, like, I'm happy to admit, this has been a recent development. Because as I've really gotten into the work related to my charity, it's happened all the time. I've been at a table and someone's questioned saying, well, is this really making a difference? Is this really a change? I've had people comment saying, does this money even go to places? And these are all great questions. You should be skeptical about things. And I appreciate that in people. But there was, I think, multiple days where when people would ask me questions, I would actually, and I'm like vulnerably admitting this, I would start to be like, maybe I shouldn't do this work. Like, maybe they're right. Like, am I ever going to solve this problem? Am I really going to change the culture around how girls are treated? And I felt really discouraged. And then when you go to India and you meet 100 girls, you're like, I cannot believe for even a second I let someone else convince me that this progress wasn't important. Mm-hmm. It is. It really is. Listen, on the internet, it's easy to say how you're going to change X, Y, Z. When you're in person, you see you've changed one person's life. A lot gets put into perspective.
And I was listening to an interview that you did recently, pivoting the conversation a little bit. We were talking about how, you know, online creators oftentimes are, when you're making that switch to traditional media, you're, and similar to what you were saying before, you're discounted. You're not viewed as actual creatives, even though you are actors and media personalities and your own directors, etc., you know, because you're having to do everything yourself. How have you seen that that's changed now that you've like experienced quite a few years, you know, doing more traditional media, and what still needs to change?
So I've had the privilege of seeing a lot happen in the creator space and with creators trying to transition to the traditional space, for lack of better terms, and I've experienced it myself. I do definitely think that the term creator is not confusing to anyone these days. I think before it used to be like, what does that actually mean? Like, what value do they bring to the table? I think people understand now that creators are business owners for the most part. They understand the value they bring. They understand there's a commodity that's being sold. They know what's up. The thing that, and I'm just going to be really honest about this, the thing that I'm still seeing happen, though, is people are still viewing creators through solely a numerical lens. Anytime you talk about a creator, even me, I still consider myself a creator to an extent. I love creating content, but I don't post consistently on YouTube or anything anymore. But even still till this day, when someone introduces me on a stage, the first thing they're going to mention is how many followers I have and how many views I have on YouTube. And I understand why they're doing that, and I'm really proud of that as well. But creators are, honestly, they shift culture, and I don't think they're given that credit. You know, even Forbes will make a list about top earning creators, and people are fascinated about how much money they make because of how many followers they make. But like, these are people who are actually changing lives and changing culture in a way that we've never seen before because of the way they're accessible to their audience. You know, traditional actors, actresses, musicians have a lot of influence, but they're definitely shielded by many more barriers than a creator is. A creator has let their audience in, has often met their audience in real life multiple times, and so there's a really different type of connection there that I don't think they're given credit for. And it is a business. It is a business. It's a business with no HR, with no hours, so it's a difficult business. But I really think we need to give creators that credit, of that they are actually changing the way business gets done. They're changing culture, they're changing lives, and they're changing, honestly, the industry. Like, my biggest hurdle in life is that I will be presented so often with a traditional contract, with traditional ways of thinking, and I'm just like, none of this is actually impactful. Why don't we do this instead? Why don't we break this rule? Why don't we make this? And people are so resistant to that change, but, like, it's going to have to happen.
Yeah, and did you feel that that was something that you came across when you had your late night show as well, where you were like, hey, maybe this might have been the format, but I want to switch it up because I know what audiences have connected to in the past with my other work?
Yeah, what was really tough about the late night show is that it's me stepping into something brand new, and I had no experience with this machine of late night. And I was really expected to learn it right away, which was very hard to do. The first season, there's a lot I'm proud of, and there's a lot that I'm not super proud of because I don't even think it's particularly enjoyable. Me hitting the exact mark on the floor when I did my monologue, redoing it when I messed up, as opposed to just embracing my mess-ups. Just being a little looser. There were so many things, the show had to be exactly, 24.2 whatever minutes. Like, there's such a rigid format that it has to go in accordance to. Not to mention that as much as it was like, we want to do something fresh, it's like, we want to do something fresh, but also, you're after Jimmy and Seth, so, like, don't lose that audience. Don't lose that Jimmy and Seth audience that are used to Jimmy and Seth. So it was a lot of, like, impossible situations to be put in. I think the second season, I very much was like, our monologues are not going to be monologues, they're going to be rants. They can be jump cutty. If I mess up, we're going to embrace it. I want you to see the real me. Like, just like on YouTube, where you could see the real me. There's an episode in season 2 where I'm waxing my upper lip, preparing for an interview. Like, all the things. Well, the hard part was that after the first season, people kind of made up their mind. They were like, oh, we watched it. Yeah, it was whatever. Like, I don't really feel like the opportunity for change was really there. People were super impatient with that. Not to mention both seasons of it were impacted by the pandemic. Yeah. So those are the odds you're up against, I guess, when you're a female late night host. It's like, we're going to give you 2 years of a pandemic and this budget. But you know what? It is what it is. And it was tough. But yeah. The last thing I will say is, just because you asked this question of what we can improve about creators, there's so many events, organizations, forums where people really want creators present, again, because of their numbers. Oh, we have this massive event, but we have to post these clips on YouTube. I guess we'll get this person who's big on YouTube to do this for us, but will we actually value their talent, respect them, or actually let them participate fully in this thing? Not really. But we need them because this is going to go on YouTube. Like, that disconnect is also there, which is just because someone came up on YouTube, it doesn't mean they have less to say or what they're saying is less valid. No.
But in your opinion, how, and I ask this question a lot because I'm always curious, is how can we get past that conversation of representation, just, as an industry, both, even on the press side, on the talent side, and just in general?
This question is something I think about a lot because I constantly feel two things at the same time. One part of me feels like I need to always talk about being South Asian and queer because I need everyone to know, I need this to be normalized, and I never saw it growing up, so now I'm like feeling the pressure to always talk about it. And the second hand is me being like, I'm so annoyed that I have to keep talking about being South Asian and queer because I'm also so much more, I'm stuck in this debacle over and over again. And till this day, if this interview, there will be comments under this being like, shut up about being South Asian, shut up about being queer. That will happen. It happened during late night, it happens during everything I do where I'm trying to negotiate the right amount to talk about these things. I don't know the answer, to be honest. I would love nothing more than for years from now us to not have to have a conversation about like, oh, look, there's South Asian representation. But I think the reality is we're not there yet. Until I can go into a room and sell a show about South Asians without people picking apart all the South Asianness in it, I don't think that can happen. So my answer is the reason I keep bringing it up and the reason we keep having these conversations is that there's still work to be done. If I pitch a show about a South Asian teenager, the first thing they're going to say is, but there's never have I ever. You know what I mean? If I pitch a show about anything that's already existed in some instance, it's too much South Asianness already. And so I think until that changes, I'm going to keep getting asked these questions, and I'm going to keep sucking it up and answering it and keep yelling and keep getting people to be mad at me for saying I'm South Asian and queer, but I'm saying it for a reason. It's because I still have to go into rooms and convince people that that's okay and that those stories deserve to be told. So when that changes, this conversation will change too.